Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Terry and I would like to welcome you to our December webinar, which we're very excited to share with you. This is a topic that was very popular last year, so we went ahead and updated it for 2015 so we can help you all get ready to have a fabulous year because you've mapped out your business development and marketing plans with an 8-step process. So today's presenter is Terry Wheeler, my business partner. I am Christy Gusick, and Terry is my business partner here at Professional Services Marketing. And I'll tell you what, before I launch into any of Terry's credits there on the screen, I'm just going to tell you that Terry is the perfect person to deliver this webinar because Terry has so much experience creating marketing plans for firms and marketing plans for individuals. And it's something she really enjoys doing and is very passionate around. So today's presentation will be wonderful. So Terry, just to give you a little bit of background on Terry, she has a lot of experience as an in-house marketing director for 3 different law firms here in the Minnesota Twin Cities area. And Terry is also now the business owner and founder here at Professional Services Marketing, which the firm, she started this firm over 18 years ago and has been going strong ever since. Additionally, Terry is a board member at the Lawyers Board of Professional Responsibility. She is a faculty member at 3 different law schools here in town, and she also has a master's degree in business from St. Thomas. So without any further ado, I will introduce you to Terry. But before I do, I want to just do a couple of quick little housekeeping notes. First of all, please check your email because you should have received from us some materials that you can reference during today's presentation that Terry wanted to make sure that you had. And then secondly, we want to make sure that you know that you can submit questions at any time during today's presentation via your chat board in GoToWebinar. And then lastly, we do save time at the end of today's presentation to answer any additional questions. So if you need to jump off early, we can certainly do that for you. But in the meantime, we will also be doing what we can to answer questions throughout the presentation. So without any further ado, as I said earlier, I'm going to hand it over to Terry.
Okay, thank you, Christy. Well, I'm really excited about this, and for me, the big challenge is taking a lot of information and boiling it down to a 45-minute, now a 40-minute conversation with all of you. So I'm going to dive right in. As Christy mentioned, we have some great materials, literally the roadmap for you to create your marketing plan for 2015. So let me talk briefly then about what I'm going to cover today. First of all, as you can see, I've boiled it down to an 8-step process. Marketing planning can be overwhelming, and it can cause people to say, it's too confusing, I'm just not going to do it. So what we're going to do, I've boiled this down to the 8 steps that make the most sense for your marketing plan. So we're going to talk about your contacts, your A-level criteria, what makes you unique as a professional. We're going to get into identification of your audiences, as in who you're marketing to, as well as developing key messages. It's very important that each of you set some objectives for yourself for 2015, so we're going to talk about that as well as how to establish a revenue goal that you can hold yourself accountable to. And finally, we're going to give you some tips on how to take action. I actually have a little bonus section of this presentation that's about beefing up your marketing tools. So hopefully I'll be able to get through the first slide so that we can show you some good marketing in action. Now, you're probably bored to death seeing this graphic. For those of you who are repeat webinar attendees, I just want to throw this up quickly because the building blocks of your marketing plan remain stepping back and conducting an assessment, looking at what's worked and what hasn't, looking at your revenue, looking at the clients that you attracted this past year, and then rolling that into your plan for 2015. The thing that is most important, of course, is that you commit yourself to implementing the plan and that you have some strategies in place to measure the results. So you've also seen in past webinars the 4 pillars of marketing. These govern the areas in which you will be implementing your marketing plan, the retention and growth of your current relationships, attracting new business, increasing your name recognition in the marketplace, and creating targeted communications. So you'll see that all of the bullets underneath are sub-areas that you may choose to develop some objectives around. Okay, so briefly, when we're talking about your contacts, I did a marketing training program for one of my clients yesterday, and we shared marketing successes. And the one thing that every single marketing success had in common is that it began with a contact, a connection, someone that that individual knew. So this is the most important part of your marketing plan, is figuring out who your top 10 current clients, prospective clients, and referral sources are, because these are the individuals you will build your marketing plan around. We have sent to you, and hopefully you've received it, a version of this pipeline document. We call this our sales pipeline, and literally it is an Excel spreadsheet for you to start tracking your information, your top current clients, prospective clients, and referral sources. And I was trying to scroll down on the page, sorry. But so it also has dollars that you can assign, and we just feel that that's extremely important as you're looking at your marketing plan. You have to identify the dollars and the revenue that you want to generate. So enough said about that. Let's also talk a little bit about your ideal clients and your referral sources. Now, you'll notice that as I'm presenting this, if you've attended past webinars, I've mentioned these things before because they're all part of marketing best practices for professionals. But in this particular program, I've pulled the thoughts together in a salient fashion so that it's all about developing your marketing plan. So I just want to touch briefly again on how important it is to have criteria for your clients. You know that when you're working with a client that it's not the best fit, that it's not as enjoyable, the relationship isn't as enjoyable. And if you're like me, you'll tend to procrastinate clients that don't bring you joy. Now, obviously, there are always going to be clients that are a little bit more challenging, but we're talking about marketing, and we're talking about going out and generating new business. So what's important is that you look at those clients, your best clients and potentially the ones that are more challenging, and you say, what criteria do I need to have in order to attract more clients like them? Because you can do that. It's just a process of being more thoughtful. It's also very helpful when you're talking to a prospective client to be able to say, would you like me to tell you what our very best clients have in common? And then you can rattle off your criteria, and they're super impressed because you know what you're talking about. Knowing what makes you unique. Knowing what makes you unique is a combination of a few different things, one of which will be the value you bring to the marketplace. Why do your clients choose to work with you? Why do your clients refer you to others? It's really important that you capture, if you're a professional, if you're a financial advisor or an attorney, it's not enough just to say, I'm an attorney or a financial advisor. You have to really delve into why your clients hire you. So what we have here is a basic step when you're talking about creating your niche. It's an area in which you have very, very high visibility, you have great credibility, and you have subject matter expertise. That is what creates your niche. Let me stress that having a niche does not preclude you from taking on other areas in your practice or different types of clients. This is all about marketing and how we're going to be proactive as we get out and position ourselves to generate more business. So defining your niche is a very important part of that, and it's only going to help and benefit you, particularly if, for example, you include those niche areas in your headline on LinkedIn. When people do keyword searches for people, those are the terms that you're hoping they'll find you under. So be as specific as you can when you're developing that headline, that it really does convey your niche. Now, the fourth step is all about identifying your target markets. Now you have in your materials, you literally have a worksheet that's going to help you go through each and every one of these steps. You also have an article that Christy and I wrote on an 8-step process for developing your marketing plan. So you're going to have a lot of resources after the webinar to be able to dive into this. So identifying your target markets, I think the most important thing here to acknowledge is that you're going to have multiple different groups that are going to be your audiences. And so I thought this slide was very appropriate simply because your target audiences, let's say you're involved in a trade or a professional association. Well, in that situation, your audience will be the members of that association. And you're going to have subtly different strategies for each one of your target markets, because what you need to do is you need to convey to them the areas that are going to be compelling so that they remember you over and above other people who do what you do. So that is a nice segue into the messaging part of your marketing plan. So messaging is really about how do I want to convey the benefit that I bring to my clients. And when you're looking at key messages, you want to ask yourself, why do my clients hire me? Why do referral sources send business my way? That is important as you look at why clients hire you, but also the value you bring. And I always tell, we like to suggest to people that if you're unsure of your key messages, one great way to develop them is to talk to some of your closest clients. And maybe you feel uncomfortable doing this. You could also do a little web-based survey about your services. But it's about asking those individuals, why did you hire me? You hired me 3 years ago. There were other firms interested in doing work with you. You talked to other financial advisory firms or law firms. Why did you choose me? And it's amazing how much information you can get from those clients in terms of why they chose you. You might hear things that say, well, I knew that you had a niche in working with physicians, or I knew that you had a niche in plaintiff's employment law focused on discrimination. You know, you want to have those niche messages out there because that's what is ultimately going to get clients to hire you. So I want to stress, and there's a place in the materials for you to identify your key messages, those messages, and also those messages are going to change a little bit. The best kind of key message or set of messages are those that change based on the individual that you're talking to. You have to be able to listen and ask questions about what their situation is, and then deliver your key messages based upon what you're hearing from them. So that is another important component of key messages. They change depending upon who you're talking to. However, they shouldn't change significantly. You're just trying to take your messages and make them appropriate for the slide that we looked at back here, all of these different audiences. Now I want to talk, I'm going to move into the next section here on setting your marketing objectives. Now this is a place where a lot of professionals can get stuck. And I actually was going to include a slide, but I took it out because it's about how important it is, so I'm just speaking the words to you, how important it is that your marketing objectives be measurable and that they are very specific and that they are time-driven. One of the other things that I learned in this session yesterday from the people that I was conducting the training program for is that in order to be successful in marketing, you absolutely have to be proactive, you have to be intentional, you have to agree that you want to generate more business in 2015, therefore you're going to apply this 8-step process to taking control of your practice and generating more of the right kind of revenue that you want to be delivering. So the marketing objectives, as we talked about earlier, are organized around the 4 pillars of marketing. So you're going to be looking at, and please know when you look at the materials that you don't have to have objectives under each and every area that I've given you a space to jot down your objectives, but do remember that they need to be specific, they need to be measurable, and they need to be tied to a timeline. and that we're going to get to this, but it's all about the action and the willingness to say, there are a lot of things on my calendar today, but I'm going to do one thing that helps me develop my business. Maybe the one thing that day is going to be sending an email to someone that you want to reconnect with and have lunch, or spending 5 minutes on LinkedIn. But your marketing objectives are going to talk about what it is you want to accomplish. So let's talk for a minute here about setting your revenue goal. Your business development goal, I always encourage my clients, especially at this time of year, which is why hopefully this webinar is timely and relevant, to step back and look at how was 2014? What revenue did you build and contribute to your firm or generate for your own business? Look at that revenue number. And you can also plan revenue for next year, because you have a pretty good feel for certain client matters that are going to carry over into 2015. This is very, very simple, basic revenue forecasting. I'm sure our financial friends are wondering, how can you possibly try and simplify this? But it's true. You have to look at the revenue that you want to achieve in 2015. Out of it, you subtract the revenue that you feel is already on the books. Obviously, things change, and you will likely see that there is a gap. And that gap is what your real business development goal is. There's a format in the materials for you to look at your past revenue, to look at your revenue over a 3-year period, and then to project what it is you want to do in 2015. So I encourage each of you to tie your revenue to the objectives that you have. Tie your revenue to your marketing growth, because it makes it more achievable. If you realize that you have a $200,000 gap between what you think is going to come in and what your goal is for generating new revenue, well, your real business development goal is now quantifiable. And you can look at that $200,000 and you can say, boy, there are a lot of ways I could get to that $200,000 in new revenue. Do I want to attract a number of smaller clients, or do I want to attract 3 or 4 really big clients at $50,000 each? Only you know your practice well enough, but at least it gives you something to focus on as you're pursuing your marketing plan. Now, as I mentioned, the place where most marketing plans will tend to fall through the cracks is in the portion of taking action. So I want to talk about this slide for just a minute, because the most important part of it is at the bottom, and that's where we define the objective, what you want. This is what you want, your higher level intention of what your goals are. They have to be realistic, measurable, and tied to a timeline. All of the tactics then are how you're going to get there. So you might have an objective to increase client satisfaction so that you have a 99% client satisfaction rating, and you want to do this by March 1 of 2015. So that's timely, it's measurable, it's realistic, you can do this, but how are you going to do that? How do you measure? How are you going to achieve that objective of a high client satisfaction rating? Well, one tactic could be, I'm going to conduct a survey of my clients, and I'm going to ask them a number of questions about the services we deliver, but I'm also going to ask them if, knowing what they know about me or my firm, they would refer business to us. And what you'll find, by and large, is you're going to find that your clients love you. They wouldn't be working with you if they didn't think highly of you and appreciate and value your expertise. But then you have quantifiable data that you can use and turn into some marketing messages for your website, for a proposal that you might be doing. So it's really important to focus on the objective, but then figure out, how am I going to get this done? And that's where objectives and tactics can be somewhat confusing. Many times professionals who are fast-paced and always busy and never have the time, they want to jump right into just doing things. And I want to caution you against that, simply because you now have a tool that lays out this very simple 8-step process of developing your marketing plan. And I found that professionals can tend to waste a lot of money if they do the ready, fire, aim instead of really putting a marketing plan in place. It might seem easier, just like, for example, advertising can seem like a very easy way to get your name out there, but yet it's very expensive versus engaging more on social media. Well, look at the difference. That takes your time. And my point is that many professionals that I've worked with over my career will sometimes gravitate toward throw money at it and see if it generates results. And I encourage you not to do that and to really take to heart this concept of identifying first your objectives. And then you'll see at the end of the document, the marketing planning tool that I sent to you, there are areas for you to identify what are your action plans under the tactics you want to pursue under each one of the pillars of marketing. So action in terms of implementing a marketing plan is really about two different things. It's about the action you're taking to pursue projects, to join an association, to post 3 times a week on LinkedIn. Those are your bigger objectives that have to deal with actual projects that you're going to be pursuing. Okay, so the second way in which you implement your marketing plan is what we talked about in the very beginning, and that is that sales pipeline. This is where your rubber meets the road, in that the contacts that you already know are highly likely going to be those individuals who will generate, refer business. I can't tell you, back to this training session, it was just very compelling because there was so much involvement and interaction between the members of this group. But what their successes, I mentioned this earlier, what they all have in common is the fact that they came from individuals. This happened to be a law firm. They came from individuals that were on the other side of a lawsuit from them, or from the accountant that was the accountant for their client, but then they realized, gee, we have some clients in common, so we should get together and have lunch. One person was amazed that every single person they asked to meet and either have coffee or lunch said yes. And he was surprised because he just figured that people wouldn't take the time to do that. And when you're looking at your contacts, think about how you can help them. So when you're looking at your own base of contacts, you don't go into that lunch feeling like, okay, I'm here because I need to sell myself. I need to talk about how great I am and how fabulous my firm is and the credentials that I have. It is just the opposite of that. When you're at that lunch with your contact, you should be all consumed and focused on them. And you should be asking questions. And I always encourage people, before you go out to meet with a contact, do a little bit of research. Go out, look at their website biography, check them out on LinkedIn, do a Google search for them. It's amazing what you can find by spending 10 minutes before that you have to leave for the lunch, just getting a better handle on what they do. Another contact strategy is a phrase we call commonality. What you're always looking for in your contacts, and that's why you check them out a little more closely, is because you want to find out if there is something you have in common. Wouldn't it be a coincidence if your brother attended the school that they graduated from, or they see that you're extremely interested in downhill skiing, or like my wonderful business partner, Christy. Christy is very involved in the equine world with horses, and I can't tell you how many relationships Christy has solidified and grown with her contacts because of the fact they have horses in common. It just gives you a place to gather around and build the conversation from, as opposed to feeling that you have to be prepared to do the song and dance about you. The best way to follow up with your contacts is to acknowledge that you're in it to help them, that you're going to be asking great questions, and you're going to be using your brilliant mind to listen to what they're saying and to come up with probing follow-up questions. And that's how they realize, wow, you really know what you're doing. Now, obviously, when you're meeting with contacts, there will generally come a time when the other person says, well, so tell me about you and tell me about your practice. And that's where what makes you unique and your key messages all fall into place. You've now learned a lot more about that individual that you're sitting with. And so now you can tailor your remarks to that individual. Use examples of what you do that they're really going to be able to relate to. So it's the finesse of how you build relationships and contacts. There was another really interesting component, and that is when you're looking at contacts, what you want to make sure you do is to reach out proactively to people that have been impressive to you in the past. Being proactive makes all the difference in the world. We talked a lot about this in the training session. The reason that people are having success in marketing is because they are proactively reaching out to say, let's have lunch. It's been a while. Let's meet for coffee. Let's meet for beer or wine after work. Whatever it is, it's about you reaching out to your contacts. And I think a lot of professionals have this hope and belief that they're going to be sitting at their desk and focused on their client work, and because they're so good at what they do, the clients will come to them. And as we know in this market and this competitive environment, that simply doesn't happen anymore. So that was quite a lot on how to leverage contacts, but that just shows you how important your contacts are to your marketing plan. So I just want to recap a little bit here. And again, this follows the materials that you have. It's all about your contacts. Secondly, it's about identifying the key messages around your niche, around what makes you unique, and then identifying which audiences need to hear those messages, followed by stepping back and creating some measurable objectives that are tied to results and a timeline that you are going to commit to do in 2015. Remember, you have to spread them out. Don't be overwhelmed by your own objectives, but going through that thought process, usually between the week of Christmas and New Year's, I have found over the years that is a really great week to get some things done, to get caught up, to get ready for the next year. My hope is that each of you will take some of that time and work on your marketing plan. And finally, it's about the action that you are willing to proactively take. It's about taking your marketing time and scheduling it on your calendar. If you treat yourself as your very best client and you put time on your calendar that you're going to devote to your marketing activities, you will be successful. I've quoted a friend of mine many times in the past, and he is a sales manager. And what he says is, if you do the right things consistently over time, you will be successful. And the key word there is, by doing the right things, you need to have a marketing plan so that you know you've put thought into it. But it's about consistency over time that's going to generate the results for you. I always tell people, it doesn't matter. You've got a document printing out. Send someone a quick email and say, boy, it's been a while. I'd really enjoy having lunch with you. And you'll get that lunch set up. And it took 15 seconds of your time to do that. So my thought for you is to weave the concept of marketing and building and growing your business and your practice through the very fabric of your business. You need to think about marketing all the time. As busy professionals will always tell me, their biggest challenge is time. I don't have enough time. And then I go into my scare tactic, which says, if you don't have time to, or if you wait until you do have time to market, it's likely going to be too late. The bottom line is, it's about the consistency over time of staying in touch with your contacts. And that's why pillar 1 is so important, the retaining and growing relationships with your existing contacts. You don't have to look outside of your comfort zone until you feel you've fully leveraged the existing contacts that you have. And that means the other professionals in common that are also delivering services to your client, or the other referral sources out there who are similar to the person who referred you. The example in my head is a family law attorney. Well, a family law attorney is not going to necessarily go out and use the exact same business development strategies, because people who market to consumers are marketing based upon the knowledge that they have to get referral sources. They're not going to build their business unless they have solid referral sources. So I also now have added, I think I shared this with you, I'm giving you a little bonus, because I think it's really important as you look at your marketing plan and as you look at the tactics that you're going to implement, to be able to say, well, what are some of the things that I should be considering? So I've gone through and I've really summarized what I believe are the most important things. Obviously, everything you do in marketing is important, but let's talk, for example, about beefing up your biography. You're probably familiar now with Larry Schaefer at Schaefer-Helene, because I know I've talked about him in the past. But when you look at your biography, it's the best marketing tool that you have. When people go to your firm's website or to your individual website, they are looking for background and information on you that is going to show them that you've done exactly what it is they need. So make sure that you're keeping your biography top of mind, and that if you publish an article, if you speak at an event, make sure that that gets onto your biography and it gets onto your LinkedIn profile, because it really does make a difference. As I mentioned before, you want to convey the breadth and depth of experience you have. And I can honestly tell you, if you create representative experience, they're like mini case studies, but what they have in common is that they summarize, this was the type of client that I was working with. This was the problem that they came to me. This is how they presented. They said, I have this issue or problem. You worked with them to develop an approach. You implemented the approach, so therefore you should have a solution. You're only going to focus on the results that you would like to replicate into more business. But before you meet with somebody, it's awfully nice to be able to send them a couple of links into your website to say, I just thought this might be of interest to you, and really look forward to meeting with you. You can send them hyperlinks that they can scope you out a little bit as well, but you're feeding them the information that you think is going to be most relevant for them. Using the example of physicians. So if you are meeting with a physician, you might want to send that physician information from your website. Here are services for medical professionals. Here are 2 or 3 blog posts that I've done recently on delivering services to physicians. So because that really makes you stand up above the crowd. It really differentiates you, because you're showing the person that you're meeting with that you've done what they need. This is obviously if you're meeting with a prospective client. Now, on that same topic of referrals, you want to make it as easy as possible for people to refer you. This is a past client that we did some work with, and what I really like about this is that it's a 2-page PDF. You can print it front and back. You have then 1 page that you can share with a prospective client or referral source in preparation for your meeting with that person, that says, here's who I am, here's my client service philosophy. These are some of those representative pieces of experience that I bring to the table. You might even want to, as we did in this piece, include some testimonials, the feedback that you get from other clients. So right here you have a very simple little 2-page summary and handout that you can post on your website for people to download. You can send it to someone in advance of a meeting, and you can also have a link to this on your website so that anyone who goes to your website can click and print this out if they choose. I've talked about this in the past, and I've done a whole entire webinar on this topic, but don't forget about the importance of your website. Christy and I are finding out now more than ever, people need to take a look at their website and realize, gosh, I created this website 4 or 5 years ago, and it was state-of-the-art. It was fabulous then, but it might need a little bit of revamping to really look current. So these are examples of a couple of websites. This is a family law client of mine in Milwaukee, and one of the things we did was to create a video blog. It's easier today more than ever to create videos. Case in point, I have a Logitech camera, and I was absolutely amazed at the recording features and the quality. It's a digital recording I was just testing it, and it's pretty amazing. So you even have the ability to create your own videos. So that's something you might want to look into. And I put the Schaefer Helene website up simply because they have gotten clients as a result of this website. And why is that? Because they focus on who they serve. Because if you are showing people that you know their world, and that's why it goes back to, again, you don't want to be considered a generalist. You want to serve your clients, but you want to be able to focus on the areas that make you unique, those areas in which you have higher level expertise than other people who do what you do. Because this website has literally generated clients because of its content, I wanted to share it with you because it's clean. There's a lot of white space. You can see it for yourself if you just go to their website. Also, this was another client. Now, you think about, well, a website, that's going to really be expensive. But one of the ways that we work as a team with our website developers is we'll take a WordPress template. In this case, on the left, you'll see the template is called Evolution. Then our graphic design team will turn it into something that in many cases doesn't really look like the original template because it's been branded and created for this firm. So literally, we turned that Evolution template into what you're seeing here for the Micklin Law Group. I'm showing you this because I want you to see that it is possible, that there are some great technologies available now that have really brought the ultimate price of doing a basic website down pretty significantly. Just to quick show you, this was the template that Christy and I selected, this Nevia. This is the template we selected, and then you'll see on the right, this is what happened after we customized. Here's another example of one of our clients who the concept here is that when you're doing your marketing tactics, you want to do them right. I would say wait and don't do them if you don't have the money to do them right. So you want to invest in someone who does professional graphic design, someone who can write your content for your website with SEO in mind. So this is just an excellent example, again, of another way in which one of our clients is communicating out there with the world. Now, I love this, and some of you may recall these, but this is the don't use overused graphics. So here you'll see the overused graphics that happen. Now, there's one for financial advisors. The other ones are for lawyers, the handshake, the dollars, the compass. How many financial advisors use the compass to show people the way? So I encourage you to use a service like iStock. iStock.com has stock photography, and you can go and you can pick out images that reflect you and your firm, but don't just use overused clip art. That doesn't do anything to distinguish you. Also, client testimonials can be very powerful because you are then marketing yourself through the eyes of your satisfied clients. So when you follow up at the end of a case or matter to ask a client to write something that you could use on their website, chances are they're going to be very willing and supportive and will give you a fabulous testimonial. You might have to edit it down a little bit because they're going to be so happy with what you did, they're kind of going to go on and on. At least that's what I've seen. But the bottom line is testimonials add credibility because it isn't just you saying, I'm the greatest thing, look at all the results we're generating. It provides that third-party credibility that it can only come from someone who's actually worked with you. When you're looking at your website and your marketing activities, make sure that you're fully integrating with social media. I'm still surprised at how many websites I see today that don't have social media icons, and they might have a Facebook company page or a LinkedIn company page. For sure, they have a LinkedIn profile. You need to make sure that you're integrating that social media. Your website and social media should really be viewed to some extent as one. And then I know that with many of the templates we use in WordPress have this feature where you can include sharing options. You'll notice the little green thing here. You can actually print off pages of your website in a high quality format by including some of these sharing options. So if I clicked Facebook, it would share the information from your website on my company Facebook page. So the concept here is make sure that you're integrating social media with your website. Also, it's very easy to add Google Analytics to your website. You need to be able to track and measure who's visiting you, how often they're visiting you, what their feedback is, what pages they're going to, what keywords they use to find you. So, and you can talk to anyone who does web development, and they'll tell you it's absolutely easy as pie to add Google Analytics to your site. And these are the types of reports that you get. So you can see the number of visitors and page visits, and it really does help quantify how your website can be a fabulous marketing tool. And then just SEO. I'm just going to throw these up here quickly because I want to leave time for questions. But SEO is all about positioning yourself online through the content that you write to be able to come up in keyword searches when people are looking for someone like you. So for us, SEO is part and parcel of the whole website development concept, because developing a website without SEO is sort of like, why bother? You're developing a website because you want to be found online. So it's important that you consider search engine optimization and that you have tools in place also to track this. This could be a whole webinar into and of itself. So at this point, I'd like to open it up for questions. I'm just expanding this here.
So we want to encourage you to write in questions now, because now's the time. We'd love to spend a few minutes asking questions. So the first one is a real basic question, which is just, we've had somebody write in and ask if this webinar is going to be recorded. And yes, this webinar is recorded, as are all our webinars. So today when you receive a follow-up email from us, which should be about 4 hours after the conclusion of this presentation, we will include in there a link to the recorded webinar, and it will be on our YouTube channel as well as on our website. And if you go to our website on our homepage in the navigation bar, you will see that we have a link to webinars. And on that page will be our upcoming webinars, which we're just in the process of finalizing for 2015. And you will see all our recorded webinars from the last 2 years, actually. Some great content in there. Additionally, upon leaving today's webinar, you will get a survey in your browser. We want to ask that you complete that survey. There is an option at the end of the survey to write in additional comments, questions, or feedback. And so if you have a topic that you have further marketing questions on and you'd like us to speak on someday, either in a blog post or a webinar or just provide information on, please feel free to jot that in there. There's no marketing topic that is too simple for us, and I just want to say that because as Terry was talking about networking today, I actually had a client request this week for me to write down step by step of what would happen in a networking meeting. And so if you have basic questions, anything like that, please let us know.
So here's a very good question that came in. The question is, how do you incorporate partner accountability with marketing plans? And that is a very good question. Number one, I think you can lead by example, because even though you're in a partnership, it's still all about developing business, and hopefully your partnership acknowledges business that you've generated versus business that others have generated. I think you can absolutely suggest that on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, that you and your partners get together and specifically talk about proactive marketing strategies. What are you working on in marketing? It's almost like a peer pressure type scenario. So it's accountability can be the most difficult and challenging, but there's strength in numbers. And when you pull a number of people together, they start seeing what their other partners are doing, and they become more accountable because they don't want to show up at meetings and not really have done anything. Another question is, how successful do you feel online communications are, email mainly, in bringing clients back for more services? That's a great question. We work with a number of different email communication tools, and what Christy and I always say is that it's important throughout the course of the year, when you're trying to build your name recognition and awareness, you need to stay in front of those key individuals with something that's timely and relevant. So that's where a service like Constant Contact, some of you are using MailChimp. There's also a service out there called Campaigner. That's where you can adopt an email program that is very, very inexpensive. You'll be amazed that it's not a huge investment at all. And you'll be able to communicate timely, relevant information. You might decide within Constant Contact, for example, that you want to have 3 or 4 different sub-lists based on your target audiences and send content to them that will be absolutely relevant and specific to them. It takes a little bit more time, but it always pays off because they see that you are really taking the time and initiative to send them content that's timely and relevant.
Okay, I'm going to ask and answer this next one because it's something I work with my clients on a lot, and I'm sure Terry does too, but I have kind of a little strategy to help. So Valerie asks, how would you approach a holiday networking event, or any networking event for that matter, when you don't know anyone who will be attending? Well, first of all, that's, I don't think, anybody's favorite place to be, Valerie, so I completely understand your apprehension, I would say, about going. So that's completely normal. I just want to say that first and foremost. Second of all, I want to encourage you to do what Terry suggested, which is maybe if you have an opportunity and you can do any research on the people that will be attending to see if you have any commonalities with them, I would encourage you to do that. That would be my first step. Do a Google search on people, or even, if there's any connection, that if you're going with a spouse, or if there's any, there has to be a reason why you're invited. So I try to start with the people you have in connection first. But then what I always tell people to do is not focus on the entire group, but focus on connecting with 1 or 2 people at the event and having 1 or 2 meaningful conversations. And it might take you 4 interactions before you find those 1 or 2 people that you find that you can really connect with and have a conversation with. But I always tell people, when you're going to a large event, really try to come away with 2 business cards of people that you can follow up with. And I keep the goal simple and small because it's doable. And it's also all the more you're really going to want to take on in terms of a big event and following up after it, if that's at all part of your goal, which a holiday party it might not be, but just networking events in general, I would say 2 business cards or 2 relationships is your goal. And again, it may take you 4 conversations to get 2 people that you really feel you have a connection with, but just keep your chin up and know that there's going to be other people off to the side feeling the same way you feel too. So I wouldn't try to break into a big group. I would try to find somebody that's kind of in the food line by themselves, or eating by themselves, or getting a drink by themselves. That's where I'd start first.
And, one thing just to augment that, I think the biggest thing here is that it's not about you, it's about that other person. And we talked a little bit earlier about how important it is to ask questions. And you can prepare those questions in advance of the meeting. One good question is, how are you connected to whatever the event is? So it's all about the questions you ask, and that should take some of the pressure off of you when you don't know the other person. Now we have one final call, and I acknowledge we're going a little bit over here, and if you need to leave, we understand and respect that, but I do want to answer this very last question. This question comes from Terry, and the question is, what form of marketing produces the highest level of return on investment for generating new leads? Networking, email, cold calling, social media, referrals, etc. And I think by and large, what generates the greatest ROI for new leads is starting with the best of what you have. It's going to your LinkedIn connections and looking at who you might want to connect with. When I say that, I mean go out to coffee with one of your existing connections. It's all about the people. The other things, the emails, cold calling, I know for a fact that lawyers can't do cold calling, and that would be last on my list. Social media. The answer to your question, Terry, is really all of the above, with a strong underscoring focus on the people. Look at where your business has come from in the past. And there is a little strategy that goes into that. You have to look at where your business has come from, who's referred business to you in the past, who are other similar people. I'm a big believer in one-on-one networking. I'm sort of like the person whose question we just answered for Valerie, that I don't like to be in big groups of people, rooms with people I don't even know. So hopefully that helps. But the focus is on the people. And my point in that was that you can do really fabulous networking one-on-one. It doesn't have to just be go to this big group and start schmoozing. One other question that just came in. Oh, it was a comment. Well, thank you. We've gotten some very positive feedback from each of you. And with that, we're going to wrap up. As Christy mentioned, we're in the process today, in fact, of finalizing our 2015 webinar series, and we hope that you will all be a part of that. And we wish you a very, very happy holiday, and thank you again for participating in this webinar today.